My next guest has got another fun fight coming up here against Niko Price, UFC 302, June 1st. It is right around the corner. It's Alex Morono back here on the program. Alex, how are you?
Good, man. Literally just pulled in from a training session. Man, always happy to do interviews with you. It's a big fight card. I'm excited for this fight.
Yeah, I think we all are. And a nice turnaround as well. When did you find out? Nice being able to fight so close together.
I actually had contacted the UFC. My coach did. I was actually training with Ricky Tercios, who's actually fighting a week after me. And I told him, I was like, hey, there's this pay-per-view coming up, and there's 3 welterweight matches on there. I'm going to get in shape and see if I can't take someone's spot. And then, no joke, later that day, right after our lunch class, he was like, hey, did you hear Jeremiah Wells pulled out? And I literally ran to my phone and called Coach Safe, and he called the UFC. And then within a few hours, we had a contract, man. It was perfect. I took no damage in that last fight. I wanted to stay active, man. I wanted this rematch. I wanted to be on a pay-per-view with the crowd. This was, really kind of checks all the boxes.
That's excellent. Let's talk quickly about that last fight against Court McGee. I know you would have liked the finish, but still a pretty dominant win. How happy were you with your performance in that fight?
Yeah, really happy. I hit him with some big shots, especially like the first right hand I landed was maybe the best punch. It was hard, and he didn't move. I got to lock up some submissions. Like, he was not about tapping out. I'm always down to go for the sub, but like when I really go for it and it doesn't happen, then I'm just like always, happy I get the win, as that's the primary goal. And Court's a vet. He's a hard dude to put away. I took no damage whatsoever, which was also awesome. So, man, I was very happy with that.
This fight ended in a no contest back in 2017. Where do you feel like he's improved since the first fight? And what about you as well? Like, obviously you guys are different fighters.
Yeah, that's a great question, man. He's had some really high level competition, as have I. He's had some crazy wars. Thankfully, I haven't had as many wars. But like, I always call Niko Price like must watch MMA. The dude's a madman. He either like wins in a crazy way or loses in a crazy way. It's one of those fights, like, I can make 0 mistakes, but he's just one of those guys who's dangerous from every position. And I do mean every position, like bottom, half guard, hammer fists. I mean, he really is. Like, even his fight with Tim Means was starting to really tag him up, and he found that big punch. I mean, he's a madman. So Niko's just dangerous everywhere, and then, which makes it fun. I have to be on my game. It's fun for the fans. I'm pretty sure we'll stand and strike the whole time, so that'll be cool.
Where do you think you've improved since that fight? That was 2021, I think, was the fight. 2017. My math's never good. That's why I'm doing this. So
don't worry. No, I always felt like I had really good technique, and I'm always looking to improve that. But like with Coach Safe in my corner, the tactics and the mindset, like, absolutely no brawling, just like having better discipline in there. I feel like I got a lot of experience in the octagon. Like, I have, I think, more than 3 hours of octagon time. I've fought like some super veterans, some new guys. I just feel like my experience is the experience, and I feel like that plays a huge factor.
He hasn't fought in close to a year. He's had some gaps, some injuries. Do you buy into that stuff that, kind of slows the fighter down, or are you kind of just expecting, the best version that you're going to be facing? Like, what do you make of sort of his inactivity, I guess would be the best way to put it?
Yeah, I know he was coming off of 2 knockout losses, and maybe he was just giving himself time to recover. I know he had done that submission-only match against Pat Sabatini, who's a freaking wizard of a black belt himself, so like no knock on that loss. But, I don't know. I know he wants to be active and, provide for his family and stuff, but no, I don't look into it much.
Okay.
I think it's good he's taking care of his body and making sure he's healthy. I'm also not too sure why he hadn't fought in a year.
Yeah.
But I remember watching the last fight with Robbie really closely. I remember also talking to my coach saying if either one of those guys pulls out, I'll jump in on that fight, but it didn't happen. I think on that card, Jack Della Maddalena lost an opponent, and I made a big play to jump in on that one, but it didn't work out. I think I couldn't have made weight. It was like less than a week, and I was sitting heavy for whatever reason. But it's just funny how that kind of comes around. But I mean, no, it's cool to see him back fighting again. I thought his match with Jeremiah Wells was going to be ridiculous because Niko's a madman and Jeremiah Wells fights weird and super aggressive. And it was funny. It was Niko versus Jeremiah that I wanted to step in either way, or especially what's his name, Philip Rowe versus the Australian Jake Matthews. Yeah. I would have liked to fight either of those guys. And there was also Basil Hafez versus Mickey Gall.
Yeah.
They needed me, I would have, but I didn't particularly want to, rematch Mickey. And then Basil's, new in the UFC, Fury vet. But I mean, they also added Elizu Dos Santos Zaleski. I always get his name wrong, versus Randy round. That would have been another great one to fill in on. So any welterweights out there, there's 4 welterweights on that card.
You're
Just
coming for him. Yeah.
stay ready if you want to jump in. No, I mean like any non-signed welterweights. If you want to, dude, I've had maybe half of my UFC fights I've just picked up short notice because I wanted to fight. And I'll tell you, I feel like I've made a career out of doing this.
Yeah, and it's worked out well for you, which is great. Let's talk a bit about camp. You mentioned Ricky, obviously, at your gym, and then at Fortis, training over there with Saif Sayoud. Who are some of the main guys that have been helping you get ready for this fight?
Yeah, so Ramez Brahimah, he's fighting the 8th. He and Ramez is a beast. He gave me most of my rounds for Court McGee. And then I healed up quick and was thankfully able to get back into camps to help him out. But he's fighting on the 18th. Mm-hmm. And then Kyle Crutchmer, he's a beast. Then I got, Jacoby, all the wrestlers, and Julius Holmes. Julius Holmes, they're all freaking animals over there. It's cool. It's fun because, I like to strike. We all like to strike, but the wrestling is just so high level in that room. We all are kind of just like forced to wrestle hard, which gets cardio super hard. I mean, it's awesome. But like training it at Fortis is excellent in the beginning of the week. And then later in the week, I have all my guys at Gracie Ball, the Woodlands. I got a couple of my guys making their pro debuts. I got Ricky fighting soon. He's actually with the Alpha Male guys right now in SAC.
Nice.
And then I got the guys at War as well. They have a freaking room full of pros. So, man, training has been super abundant. Back in the day, man, I didn't have enough training partners. Now I feel like I have too many sessions. I have more sessions than I have calories to burn, which is the best problem to have.
Your corner, what will that look like for this fight? Who's going to be in the cage with you?
My classic 3. I got Saif leading the charge, and then my striking coach, Matt Wald. He's been with me since day one. And then my boy, Jake Heffern. He's my warm-up guy. He is actually going to be helping Carlos Diego Fierro warm up for his fight this Saturday in Louisville, which will be cool. And so he's got a lot of reps in being like the warm-up guy in the side corner in UFC. And he's actually fighting the day after Ricky's fight.
Oh, wow. So
I fight on Saturday. One of my guys is making his pro debut on Friday. My super seasoned amateur Jaden is fighting on Sunday, the day after me. And the next week, Ricky fights, and the day after him, Jake fights. I mean, almost our entire team is fighting within a 2-week span. It's awesome.
How's this one playing out on June 1st? How do you see it going down?
Same as the first one. I'm going to try to beat him up on the feet and get a knockout, and I'm sure he's going to do the same thing. This time, I'm not going to unnecessarily brawl when I'm up freaking 3 rounds going into the 3rd round. But, no, I like that. I like that first fight so much. To me, it's a prime example of, like, you can have the best performance of your life, which I feel like that was, and then make one mistake and then lose everything. So that fight has actually helped me stay very disciplined in not, in just not taking risks. And, Niko's a knockout guy. I'm a striker. I feel like we're going to stand there and just bang it out until one of us is the winner. It's going to be me.
I was trying to remember, how many more fights do you have left on your contract? Because, again, you mentioned the short notice. What's the latest with that?
And I just re-signed for another 4-fight deal.
Awesome.
And I got to tell you, I was so happy with what I was getting paid. I told coach to just ask for an extension at the same pay, and they came back with me with a big raise.
Good for you.
I mean, like the UFC has always done right by me pay wise. I'm getting paid a lot, man. Not only no complaints, but all compliments. So yeah, new 4-fight deal. I think it's my 6th or 7th 4-fight deal.
You've been in the UFC since January 2016. You fought Kyle Noak. I remember your first fight. It ended up being a split decision win for you back in the day. I remember that.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And man, coming up on 10 years, I'm coming up on I'm over 8 years. So the 10-year mark will be big for me. 30 fights. I know there's only been like 14 fighters to make it 30 fights beyond. It's like, that's my new goal, 30 plus fights in the UFC. And I'm on track to make that happen for sure.
Good for you. At the top of your division, a little bit of uncertainty right now. We don't know what's going on with the title. Do you think it'll end up being Belal and Leon, or what do you think the UFC is doing here? Because it seemed like a slam dunk to have that title fight, but we don't really know what's going on with that. Leon Edwards' next opponent.
I'm pretty sure they'll book that. The UFC is, if anything, consistent with like that kind of stuff. It's going to be in the UK. I mean, I'd be surprised if that fight wasn't the fight to make. Plus, like, who else at welterweight would there be? Because you got Shavkat fighting Madalena.
Well, that's the rumor. I don't think it's confirmed, but yeah, you're right. I think Shavkat would be the only one, maybe, like who's coming off a win or deserves it, right?
Yeah, same. So, I mean, I think Bilal's like the only guy up there right now. And then like MVP maybe fights again, and he could, if he wins, maybe get a title. And then you got the Ian Garry versus Colby fight.
Do you think that happens? That was another question I was going to ask you, because I know they've been going back and forth on social media, but UFC 303 is creeping up. There's nothing signed yet. I don't know what's going on there.
I hope so. It'd be so funny. It'd be funny to see both guys lose, even though that can't happen.
It could. Well, they could get like a no contest or something, right? Maybe like Colby or Garry, someone pokes someone in the eye and it's over, right?
Yeah, that I mean, I'd actually be rooting for Colby in that fight, oddly enough.
Mhm.
But yeah, I have faith that Belal will get the next shot against Edwards.
Okay, but quickly, yeah, because you mentioned the Garry thing. Is that just because of the whole stuff with Jeff? Because I think that's what people don't get is that like Garry started all this. Like he went after Jeff Neal and he went after Magny and he went after Luque and all these guys are like not really known for being like trash talkers. So that's where I think people turned on him and they went a little bit obsessive with the wife stuff and everything else. But that's what started this whole thing. Like Jeff never said anything mean to Ian and then he wore his mugshot on his shirt.
Yeah, and I feel like he was just being like manipulated and controlled by his wife, which is really weird.
Mhm.
And one thing I love about the MMA fan base, the collective MMA fan base, is their understanding and distaste towards that kind of behavior. So like the Jeff thing was not cool. Like that's when I was like, oh, this guy's a freaking joke. But then when he like spun Neil Magny's analogy about him being immature into such a weird fashion, if anything, it kind of proved what Neil was saying. But like after that, I just most all fans really dislike that guy.
Mhm.
Colby's cringy, but he tries to be a heel. I don't think Ian tries to be. He is, and that's why people don't like him.
Fair enough. And I don't think anyone not likes you, Alex. You're always a great guy. I always appreciate you making time and doing these interviews. If there's anyone you want to thank before you get out of here, any sponsors, any social media, I'll give you the last word.
Just thank you to all my training partners at Fortis War, and of course all my students at Gracie Baja the Woodlands, and then the UFC for giving me the opportunity. Man, I really am living the dream.